So there are quite a few MOOC platforms that are out there. I would particularly recommend Coursera, edX and Iversity as platforms for entrepreneurs. So for social entrepreneurs, MOOCs are a really effective learning tool. You can participate in the MOOCs whenever you want to. You can do it in the evening, whenever you have time. You can also select only specific parts of the MOOC if you want. So you don't have to do the entire MOOC if that's not needed. And specifically, we find that many social entrepreneurs lack knowledge in the funding options that are available to them. And also, when it comes to the funding options, many social entrepreneurs are not aware of the specific strengths and weaknesses of these funding options. And a MOOC, for example, can teach them what funding options are there and which one they should select in their specific life cycle, but also concerning the business model, what kind of funding would be appropriate for that specific business model. So I believe that MOOCs are already revolutionizing education in general because they democratize our knowledge. You've got open access to high quality education. All the big schools, all the big universities offer courses for free. You can participate from anywhere in the world for free in these courses that are being taught by the best professors that are out there in the world. So I think that's very, very impressive. On the other hand, you also have to see that MOOCs unfortunately suffer from quite a high rate of those who do not decide to continue the MOOC until the very end. So we see that we have about 5 to 10% of the students who actually complete the MOOC. So we have to work on improving that. But we also know that not all participants decide that they actually want to do the entire MOOC, but some specifically select only those modules that they want to choose. So my main advice would be what we know from various incubators and from our work with various social ventures, that the most important thing is the knowledge of the root causes of the social problem. That the social entrepreneurs really understand what the social problem that they want to solve, that they want to address, what it's all about, and that they have a very good understanding of their theory of change and that it actually works. However, what we see in reality and what our research shows is that the majority of investors actually look for more managerial criteria. So unfortunately also the investors maybe do not always know what are the success factors for social entrepreneurship. Therefore, successful social entrepreneurs in my eyes really have a very solid knowledge of the social or environmental problem they want to solve, but at the same time they can dress up as an enterprise, as a commercial enterprise sometimes even, in order to convince investors to give money.
I would say the first thing that we learned from our experience is that the program that we prepare for social entrepreneurs should be quite flexible, because at the time when they come to us to see our program, their needs can be somehow not as we expected before. So the program that we prepare should be quite flexible to adapt it for the real group that is here. Another thing I would say is when we do training, use the collective intelligence of the group, because social entrepreneurs are quite creative guys, so they can help each other to improve each other's ideas. So if we can use it, then just do it. And another thing I would say in long-term context, I would not expect that young social entrepreneurs, most of them will survive, because in our experience very little amount of them really survive after 1 year. So if you plan a program, we did the conclusion that we do something long-term. So we work not just for 1 year, we work for 2, 3 years and try to support them during the period of this time. I would say that in the beginning, social entrepreneurs need to work very good on their impact model or the model of their intervention, and to know clear problem that they are going to solve. And I would say this is one important thing. And another thing is business model that they will use to make sustainable impact and change something on societal level with their initiative. And third thing I find very important is actually team sustainability, because from our experience, a lot of teams, they are just leaving each other and not doing something together. And I would say that teamwork and trust building in their teams is very important in the beginning, that they work together not just for a few months but for years. I think this should be something in cooperation between three sectors: state, private sector and non-profit sector. And in this intersectoral cooperation, they can find a structure. In our case, we decided to create a structures that will work locally and support entrepreneurs who is interested to develop their initiatives. They can come to these structures, and it doesn't matter is it non-profit organization or it is incubator in the university. It doesn't matter, but it should be created all together with the efforts of three sectors, in my opinion. So any social entrepreneur can come and consult on burning issues that is very relevant for him or her. Yeah, I think this is what you can do to build this regional ecosystem. At the moment, legal framework for social entrepreneurship is developing in Russia. So last few years there was big discourse about this topic and field, and at the moment, a few months ago, government made first law project, on social entrepreneurship. So they are going to define what is social enterprise and what is social entrepreneurship, and they are also going to define the fields of social entrepreneurship where social enterprises can work. And also they're going to define criteria for social enterprises that we can separate or say what is social enterprise and what is not. So this is what Russian government is doing at the moment, and I think till the end of 2019 they will correct this law and then accept it. I would encourage you to be as flexible and creative as possible. Go out of the frames and think of empathy to your local community, about empathy that can lead to creative solutions to your community or social problem that you want to face with your initiative.
So there are many social enterprise competitions all around the world. There are some really big ones like the Hult Prize or the Chivas Regal Prize, but you'll also find that in your local university and your local government or your area that there'll be specific competitions. I think my advice for entrepreneurs is to think very hard about which competitions to apply for. Competitions are time-consuming and a bit random in terms of how the outcomes are decided, and so very often they can turn into something of a beauty parade. So there's no shortage of competitions. The question is really the ones that you as an entrepreneur want to dedicate the time to joining in with. So these things are contextually different. The startup ecosystem in each country is different. And luckily these days we have Google, and so it's easier to find the places in your own country. There are international networks such as the Global Social Entrepreneurship Network, the GSEN, which is a network that brings together supporters of social enterprise in each country. And so there are those sorts of touch points to go to. But it's worth remembering that you can, as a social entrepreneur, get advice from any regular business advice network as well. You might find it doesn't quite match your values or your culture, but some of the things that we need as social entrepreneurs to access advice about are exactly the same as they are for commercial entrepreneurs. So I'm really lucky. I get to meet social entrepreneurs every day of the week, and I've met hundreds and worked with hundreds, if not thousands, over the years. So it's really hard to come up with the two most inspiring, because one of the great things about the sector is the diversity. There are social enterprises operating in every different industry, in different countries and in different ways. But to give you a couple of examples of things that are interesting and unusual that appeal to me, I suppose, I was thinking of there's an organisation in the south coast of the UK called HISB, which stands for How It Should Be, and they're a supermarket that sells kind of local and organic and ethical produce, but they're trying to be an everyday supermarket for local people, and they raised money from their local community. So they used a really innovative crowdfunding methodology to raise money for what they wanted to do. So that's one example of a B2C social enterprise, as in a business selling to consumers. But there are also social enterprises that are sometimes less sexy in the B2B market, so social enterprises selling to business. And it's really important that our sector develops more of those. So I guess what I think about there is an organisation called Repositive, and Repositive is a social enterprise explicitly, and it has strong ties to a charity, but Repositive itself as a social enterprise raised millions of pounds from investors for the work that it's doing in designing and making available a genomic data set to more rapidly cure genetic diseases. So their work is much more kind of B2B, it's much more working with institutions and with really big organisations than HISB, the supermarket, but they're both part of the same spectrum. So we have to keep talking, and for those of us that have been talking about social for a long time, you know, there's a tendency to get frustrated that the financial people don't understand that you can do good and make money. So there's a bit about humility, about providing examples of different types of enterprises that are recognisably enterprise, but also recognisable to financiers. And it is, you know, role models are so important in life, and it's about producing those examples again and again and again, and keeping on with this message, because the message that you can do social business is new to many people, and those of us in the sector forget this. And sometimes it's quite a radical message that we're taking to people, and it questions some of the basic premises of what people think business is. So I think my thought is we just need to be patient and keep on keeping on.